Hey guys, welcome to this week's track guide at Charlotte Roval for whatever week of the season that we're on now. For those of you that watch a Twitch stream, you will probably know that I do not like Charlotte Roval, or any Rovals for that matter. But I've seen a bunch of you in the in practice sessions and races this week. You all say thanks, so it's really greatly appreciated, guys, when people say thanks to me in the chat like that. So how could I not make a track guide for Charlotte Roval this week, even though I don't like it? So, let's get into it. Okay then guys, weather. Track is currently 25 degrees. Date and time should be set to what the official sessions are going to be set to next week. I am now using the in-game official test session of the schedule. So, these laps that I do should match the exact official sessions that are going to be next week, hopefully. Okay, and on to the setup this week. A little bit different. I've moved the brake bias up to 55 from 54. Minimum tyre pressures all round. ARB is still on 8. You still want 7.9 litres of fuel for Qually and 11.8 litres of fuel for the race. I got the SPO on -2 just because it rolls over the curbs, these big curbs at the chicanes, a little bit better. I did do 10, 12, 13 laps on a +3 as well. And you've got to be a little bit careful of the curbs on a +3. But I didn't get any damage off it. And I set a similar sort of lap time to what I did on this lap. Just a few, like 2 tenths off or something. But, so, as always guys, give it a go in practice. See what you prefer. This is going to be my preferred setup for the week. But, let me know. Let me know what setups you use, and I'm always happy to change my setup about and see if I can find some better ones. Onto the guide then. Right, the lap we're going to look at this week is a 130.763. These bunch of laps here were set on a -2 setup, and these bunch of laps here were set on a +3 setup. So a little bit slower overall on the +3. You can see I did a 130.9. I think I could have got a 130.7 with a better lap though on a +3. So there's not a whole lot of difference in the setups. Just what you prefer. Just be mindful that on a +3 you need to be a little bit more careful over the curbs. Okay then, here we are out of the last chicane coming towards over the start-finish line. I'm going to keep the car right up against this right-hand side wall. Coming up towards turn 1. As we turn round here, we're going to brake. And we're going to turn. And we're going to drop the car into 3rd gear when we get to the 1 mark. Just before it, as you can see. Let me just go to the cockpit. As we come up towards it, just before we get to the 1 marker, on the brakes, drop the car in the 3rd gear, turn in the car, and not very much brake needed. I tend to like to trail off the brakes a little bit into this corner, just to get a good drive in. You can see I'm already back to 100% throttle there, way before the apex. I just turn the car, and you can see I'm basically here. I'm miles before the apex, and I'm already back to 100% throttle. This is because I'm trying to carry as much momentum through the corner and trying to get as much drive through it as I can. It's quite a really big exit on the exit of turn 1, and you can use all of it if you need to. But more importantly, get on the power really early here. Just a note as we come towards the apex of this corner. I go to chase. You can run over this red and white curb. You do want to be touching this blue sausage curb. If you touch this blue sausage curb, then you will lose speed, and it does tend to chuck you out further towards the outside wall. But it will cause you to lose a 10th or so up until turn 3 or whatever turn it is. So just be careful of that. You can see, let the car run right to the outside of the track. If you get the corner wrong and you need to use all this bit out here, then you can do, because you got time to bring the car back around again and not hit this wall. Okay, I've shifted up the 4th really early here. You don't really need to, just shift up the 4th when you need to. On warm tyres, this corner is flat out. What I tend to do is, obviously you get really close to the wall here without actually touching it. I tend to follow this blue line all the way around. You really got to fight the car to keep the car on this left-hand side of the track to get a good entry into this right-hand corner coming up. On cold tyres, the car will obviously drift out further to the right, and then it's harder to bring the car back over to the left-hand side, which you will need to do. But when the tyres are nice and warm like mine are here, then it should be pretty easy to follow this blue line around and then keep the car on this left-hand side. Okay, coming up towards turn 3, I think. I'm not sure of turn numbers on this track. Car on the left, right on the left-hand side. And if I just go to the cockpit. So, this is probably the most difficult corner, I would say, on the track to really get a good drive. You really need to be smooth, nice and smooth through it to get a good drive out of it. And it's really, really easy to lose 2 or 3 tenths through this corner, even with a slight mistake through it. Okay, so we come up towards it, just as we get to the end of this tarmac here. Oh, wrong bit of tarmac, this bit of tarmac. We're going to turn the car in, lifting off the throttle, just a little bit. We're going to keep it in 4th through this corner. I kind of, you can say, feather the throttle and the brake through this corner, both at the same time. Just to stabilize the car. Because the car can get really loose going through this corner, and the most important thing is to keep it as stable as possible. So just a little bit on the brake, little bit on the throttle, it just keeps the car planted to the tarmac. Let the car drift up to the left-hand side of the track, then drop it down into 3rd gear. As you can see here, I'm turning and I'm pretty much keeping it as one turn all the way through the corner. You've got to keep the weight of the car has got to be on the right-hand side, if that makes sense. I think it makes sense. You've got to keep the car on the right-hand side. If you get up onto this flat because of the camber on the road here, if you get up on this flat plateau here, then the weight of the car will transfer and you won't necessarily mess up this corner, but you will lose that time I was talking about 10 seconds ago through it. You need to be really nice and smooth. So as you first through that first corner, drop the car in the 3rd gear for the second part of this turn. As you can see, one big U-turn all the way around, nice and smooth. And then you really dig the car into this corner. And then you can get a good drive out of it. You see how early I am back on the power here. Back to 100% throttle. Again, way before I actually hit the apex. Okay, as we exit this corner, you can run over this red and white curb on the outside. Just don't run onto the grass. You can use all of this track out here. There's no off-track. The off-track happens when you get on the grass. So this is okay out here. We're going to move the car up into 4th gear. If I go back to cockpit. Now, we're going to keep it in 4th gear, and we're going to keep the throttle planted as we turn in towards this corner. What I tend to do is I like to keep the car on the left-hand side as close to this grass as I can get it, and then I like to turn the car in early, and then aim for this this little bit here. So as we run over it, see the center of my car runs over this bit of non-painted, where the paint starts on the ground, pretty much. Well, you guys get the idea. So that's where I like to aim the car while turning in, and then you hit this, and then you hit that. Well, you don't hit that. And I tend to like to run a little bit wide through this corner here. Most people will run over the apex. I tend to run a little bit wide just to give myself a slightly straighter braking zone for this next corner. You can see we turn the car in, we run over that painted bit of ground with it. We're still flat on the throttle here. Still flat, and then as we go through this corner, that's when we come off the throttle. And then it's way off the throttle. And then as we passed, you really want to try and keep the car braking in a straight line, while also trying to get his car as far over to the left hand side as you can to open up this next corner. We're going to drop the car into 3rd gear. Take note of how much braking I'm actually using here. I never actually use more than 20% brake. You stab the brake in this braking zone, or use any more braking than this, then the back end is going to go around and you're going to be in this wall over here. So it's a really light braking zone, but it's also really fast, and it can be quite difficult to control the car through here. If you need to, you can run wide out here, and then you can brake in a straight line up here, or you can lift off the throttle before this corner and slow the car down earlier. But if you do that, you'll obviously be losing time. But you may need to do that anyway on cold tires. Warm tire. I find that this track becomes a hell of a lot easier to drive when you're on warm tires than it is on cold tires, even more so than normal. So, braking zone, little bit of braking through here. Max 20%, dropping the car in the third gear. And then we're going to kind of coast. You can see I trail off the brakes into this corner. And then coast to the last bit, just so I aim up this corner. You can see I'm back to 100% throttle. Again, really early. Even miles before the apex. And then we're going to run right over this apex, but missing the outside of the wall. And really early. Back to cockpit. You can see the car drifts to the left hand side. This part of the track comes up on you really quickly. As you can see here. We should be able to run flat out around this line. And then follow this blue line around the outside. You can run across here, but don't. Simple. Don't run follow the blue line around the outside, because then you end up in a straight line against this wall, ready to get onto the oval part of the track. If you run across here, then you find yourself trying to force the car to go out to this outside wall, and then that's when you end up hitting it. I think I do actually clip this wall even so on this lap. But we're going to feather the throttle over that hump. See here. Just as we go over this little ditch is where we feather the throttle just a little bit, because the car can get a little bit loose over there. You can see I can just tap the wall there. Third gear. No brakes needed for this corner, guys. It is just a lift until you feel confident enough to get back on the power again. Back on the power really early. Let the car drive up to the top side of the oval, getting a good drive, and then bring the car back down. And run on this blue line all the way around. Up into fifth gear as we come off the oval. We're going to bring the car to the right hand side of the track. We're looking for the number 2 board as we come up towards it. We're in fifth gear. Heavy braking zone this. As we go past the 2, off the throttle, you can see I'm up to about 60% braking here. 70% even. I'm going to drop the car down into second gear, turning the car in. And then we're going to really eat this. All this curb and all this sausage on the way in. There's no off track here, but you can see, just take note how much I actually trail the brakes off into this corner. Let's slow down the thing. You can see I'm on the brakes all the way into this corner and even through the corner. And how much I'm on the brakes here, just to keep the car a little bit stable. Back on the throttle just a little bit. This brake and this throttle, 5% or so on the throttle and brake, can really stabilize the car over these bumpy curbs to stop the car getting too unstable and you end up losing it. And we're going to turn, look at this. We're into this corner, really eat all this curb here. And then we're going to really eat all this second curb before getting back to 100% throttle. Again, I tend to like, well, I do like going slower into this chicane to focus on the exit. I think people were talking about it on the forums earlier in the week, how or last week or so. I'm sure I've seen it on the forums recently about how the fast guys really focus on the exit of the corner rather than the entry, because it is so much more important about focusing on the exit, especially on a track like this when it's such a long round straight, that if you don't get a good exit, then you're going to lose a load of time. So into the corner, eat all that curb, eat all this curb, as I've done here, back to 100% throttle, and if you've done it right, then the car should just miss this bit of wall on the left here. Okay, you can cut straight across this this bit of painted grass. There's no need to follow the blue line around. I tend to, when I get past this corner here, I tend to aim for this line to get back up on the oval again, or just past it, as I'm gonna do here. And then it's another case of following the blue line all the way around. I'm gonna get the car up into 5th gear before we come up towards the final chicane. Still in 5th. Now you can see the braking zone that I've been using for this is this little bit of straight here. So the corner pretty much curves all the way around. But as you come round to this corner, hopefully you guys can see this. As you come round, you can kind of see where the car can get in a straight line against this corner here. So as we get onto this straight, I'll show you that again. As we bump down the car onto this, and as we come towards the left-hand side of the track, just as we line the car up with here, is where I start braking. Just to give you an idea from outside of the car. I just got a far chase a minute so you can get a good view. Bump the car down onto the outside, and just as we hit this left-hand side of the track is where we start braking. Takes a bit of practice. There's no real good brake markers that I use for this, and it is just about practice and practice and practice until you eventually end up knowing where to brake on the track at every point. Okay, we're going to drop the car down from 5th gear into 3rd gear. Coming up towards this last chicane. You see I'm up to about 60% here. Again, trailing the brakes off into the corner. I've become a fan of this whole trailing the brakes off into the corner. I mean, it really makes the car a lot more stable into the corner when you're trying to turn into it. 3rd gear, we're going to eat all of this curb on the inside. This is why I'm using a -2 setup and not a +3. And all of this on the exit. Just be a bit careful of this curb. If you take this curb wrong, then it can chuck you out into this outside wall. I've seen plenty of people do that. You can see the car slides, really does slide out towards this outside wall. So you need to be a little bit careful of it. And that should complete the lap. Again, as you can see, really eat that curb, really eat this curb. The car slides out towards the wall. And there we are, down across the start-finish line. That ends this week's track guide, guys. I hope it helps out. I hope to see plenty of you in races and in practice sessions. If you do see me, please say hi. I tend to say hi back a lot of the time anyway. So, as always, guys, happy racing for the week. Have fun. Hopefully see you on the track. And if not, I'll see you next week.
Last lap time was at 1:31.01. Sector 3 is 10 on the next. Sector 1 time is good. lap was at 1:30.76.